Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Narom Cheva Narottanam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jamudirayat Nastabesya Bhadresun Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavasti Naistike. We are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, Divinity and Divine Service, text 18. Yat anudyasina yukta karma granti nibandanam chindanti kovidastasyam kona kuryat kataratim yat anudyasina yukta karma granti nibandanam Shindanti kovidastasyam kona kuryat kataratim yat anudyasiyat yuktam karma granti nibandanam Shindanti kovidastasyam kona kuryat kataratim yat anudyasina yukta karma granti nibandanam Shindanti kovidastasyam kona kuryat kataratim. Read this, please. Yat anudyasina yukta karma granti nibandanam Shindanti kovidastasya kona kuryat kataratim. Word for word translation. Yat, which, anudya, remembrance, asina, thought, yukta, being equipped with karma, reactionary work, granti, not, nibandanam, internet, shindanti, cut, govida, intelligent, tasya, his, kaha, who, na, not, kuryat, shall do, kata, messages, ratim, attention. Translation and purport by Abhay Charnavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. With thought in hand, intelligent man cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Please repeat. With sword in hand, intelligent man, cut through the binding knots of reactionary work by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Purport. The contact of the spiritual spark with material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruitive work. Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work. This liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead. This is because all the activities of the Supreme Lord, his Lila, are transcendental to the modes of material energy. They are all attractive spiritual activities, and therefore constant association with the conditioned with the spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualizes the conditioned soul and ultimately severs the knot of material bondage. Liberation from material bondage is therefore a byproduct of devotional service. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Such knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service, so that ultimately the devotional service alone predominates. Then liberation is made possible. Even the reactionary work of the fruitive workers can lead one to liberation when it is overcoated with devotional service. Karma overcoated with devotional service is called karma yoga. Similarly, empirical knowledge overcoated with devotional service is jnana yoga. But pure bhakti is independent of such karma and jnana because it alone can only endow one with liberation from conditional life, but also award one transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, any sensible man who is above the average man, with a poor fund of knowledge, must constantly remember the personality of Godhead by hearing about him, by glorifying him, by remembering him, and by worshipping him always without cessation. That is the perfect way of devotional service. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense literature of transcendental science for our benefit. They have chalked out ways for all classes of men in terms of different castes and orders of life in pursuance of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and similar other authoritative scriptures. The verse again. Yat anudyasina yukta karma granti nibandanam shindanti kovidastasya nakoyat kataratim. With sword in hand, intelligent man cut to the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Om Jnanati Mandasya Jananjana Shanakya Shakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sigurave Nama Chitchetaya Manobistam Staptam Yena Bhutali Svayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Svapanantikam Vandeham Shiyu Shiyuda Padakamalam Shigum Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Jagajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalita Shivishakam Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinu Bandhu Jatpate Gopesha Gopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanashri Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamama Hari Priye Vancha Kalptrubhisha Kripa Sinavesha Patnam Pavanabhyo Vaishnabhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Singyavadi Paskachai Desatarane Srila Prabhupada Ki. In 2016 I was at the Bhaktivedanta Manor in London together with my Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Charamaj. And he was going to give initiation to some of my Bhakti Shastri students, graduates. And he was sitting just beside me and he was asking me to speak, to say some words, which is very embarrassing in the presence of your spiritual master. But then, before speaking, I was asking for his blessings. Please give me your blessings so that I can say something meaningful. And he said to me, no. And he was pointing his finger to the deity of Prabhupada and said, that is where the blessings come from. So then I prayed to Srila Prabhupada for his blessings. So yes, with your blessings I will, and the blessing of Srila Prabhupada, I will try to say something on this verse. That the last part of the purport says, yes, the 6 Goswamis, they have chalked out the ways for all classes of man in different castes and orders of life in pursuance of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and other authoritative scriptures. That so the 6 Goswamis, we glorify them with the song of Srinivas Thakur, is glorifying the 6 Goswamis. Nana Chastra Vichayanaikya Nipuna Sadharma Samstapakam Lokanamitakarino Tribhuvane Manya Saranyakaram Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Matalika Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghujuga Shri Jiva Gopalaka. So this verse glorifies the 6 Goswamis from Vrindavan. That it says there, very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. So the Vedic literature is a vast literature, so many Puranas, so many Vedic texts, Vedic hymns, Mahabharata, Ramayana, that we cannot read them in one lifetime. Therefore, the six Goswamis took the essence of all these scriptures, which is everything about bhakti, and presented that to us, that so that we don't have to read all this literature. That we have Nectar of Devotion. Nectar of Devotion, written by Rupa Goswami. It gives us the practice of devotional service. Srila Prabhupada mentions about Nectar of Devotion. Every devotee should know this book within and without, because it's the manual of devotional service, how to practice devotional service. And then he wrote the Upadeshamrita, which is a summary of this Nectar of Devotion in 11 verses. That it's a small booklet, 120 pages, but it's the essence, really. Our whole process in 11 verses. Very beautiful. Now we have here this verse of today, that here the verse ends with a question. This is called a rhetorical question. Does someone know what is a rhetorical question? Yes? It's a question which is not a question. It's more a statement. It gives some information. The answer is already implied in the verse. So here it says, hearing about Krishna removes the knot of reactionary work, and who would not want to do it? That's the question. That's this reactionary work. It's like a knot which is so many threads inside, going on in all directions, and impossible to undo it. That it's a very complicated knot. So we are a spirit soul. Mamai Vamsochi Veloke Shiva Bhuta Sanatna. We are eternal Krishnas, separated part and parcel, spiritual sparks. And we come in contact with the material elements, and that creates that knot. It's very difficult to undo that, but we find a more detailed description of this knot of material existence in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam. We see this is the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto. It gives a summary of all the principles, but they are explained later in much more detail in the Bhagavatam. And this knot is explained by Lord by King Rishabhadev in the 5th canto. Chapter 5 is instructing his 100 sons, and there in text 8 he says, Pumsastriyamituna bhavam metam tayor mituridaya granti mahu Attorya cetra subtapta viter yanasya maho yamaham mameti. I read the translation. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusions and thinks in terms of I and mine. Granti is also mentioned here, that same word, granti, the knot. The knot in the heart, that from the moment that knot is there, all the other things come, that which are mentioned in this verse as Kriya Kshetra Subtapta Viter. Yeah, that means one becomes attracted to his body. One needs a home, a property, children, relatives, wealth. That is all a result of this knot. And it brings one in the illusion. I and mine is mentioned here. Illusion, I and mine. Why is I and mine here? Illusion. What's the problem? The problem is we forget Krishna. This verse says that the solution is remembering Krishna again. But we are forgetting Krishna, and therefore we forget who we are, a servant of Krishna. A little spark of him. We forget our real identity. And we accept a false identity, the body. That's our I. And then with the body, we want to enjoy the body. Then we need this, mine. That this is mine. I want to enjoy it. And what's the next illusion? Then you suffer, because that enjoyment is not always what we get in this world. It's also a lot of suffering. That it's always mixed in this world. More suffering than so-called enjoyment. And then finally you think, because the body is temporary and will die, I'm dying. So these are all the results. And it starts with forgetting Krishna. So by this knot we come in contact of material nature, and we come under this illusion. Maya. Maya has two potencies. It's the throwing potency and the covering potency. What is the throwing potency? It's the potency that empowers us to fulfill our desires to enjoy separate from Krishna. So it throws us in this illusion, in this material nature, so that we can fulfill that desire. We must be in illusion to fulfill it, because we want to take Krishna's role. So we have to forget Krishna, and that's the big illusion. But then there is the covering potency that makes us convinced that this is what we want. I want this sense gratification, I want a happy body and mind. So obviously, these two things have to be there to fulfill our material desires. So it has to be there. It's not a punishment. It is a fulfillment of our desire, factually. We try to accept something which is untrue. So yes, and it's not very difficult to undo that. So unless we recognize that we are wrong and that what we are trying to do is not good for our real self, for us, that it's not good for us to be separated from Krishna. Just a moment. So yes, it's not good to be separated from Krishna. It's not good to be separated from one's innate spiritual nature. So unless we recognize that we are wrong, we cannot begin to untie this knot. Because this knot, this material attachment, takes us from one body to another. So Krishna explains that in Bhagavad Gita, that 15:7, first he gives the good news. Mamaivam Shoshivelaka Shiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are eternal spiritual spark. We are eternal parts of Krishna. But then the bad news in the next verse is Sariram yatavapnoti yashap ukramatishvara hritvaitani samyati vairuganda nivasayat. The living entity in the material world carries its different conceptions from life, from one body to another. As the air carries aromas, thus it takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So, like if we smell an aroma, it has an effect on our consciousness, and also, we may, we smell the nice prasadam. Immediately, we should think, if it's before the offering, Krishna will enjoy it. It smells nice. But it is said here, like this conception of life, we take with us from one body to another as aromas. And by that we get one body after another. Sometimes we may wonder, what is your karma? It's not difficult to know. You look in the mirror, that's your karma. This body. We work our entire life hard, and then we retire, and then the body deteriorates, and then we leave the body. It means we are fools. But this not especially this attraction between male and female, which is the basic principles, is very strong. There was a king who was asking his Vaishnava minister, he said, I can't wait to be older and become free from sex desire. And the Vaishnava minister said, sex desire will stay with you until the last moment of your life. And the king did not believe him. But then some time later, the minister came to see the king and said, you please come with me. Come with me, I need to show you something. And please, bring your young daughter. And he went with the king to a man who was dying, was in his last moments. And the king came there with his beautiful daughter, and the man was looking at the daughter, not at the king. And then he understood, yes, these desires brings us to the next body. So Krishna consciousness means we have to become very honest. I made a mistake, and I want to correct that mistake. And I cannot give up these desires. But I want to give up these desires. I want to get rid of the influence of passion and ignorance. How to get rid of that? That is explained in this verse today. That So spiritual knowledge is, in Sanskrit was called Jnam Vijnan Samamvitam. That Jnana is described here as Jnana, it said, means that one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, to be the Supreme Being. That is knowledge described here. And that is also mentioned here. So, remembering the personality of Godhead is part of the solution here. That understanding the Supreme, that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. But then Vijnan refers to the activities that liberate one from the ignorance of material existence. That how to bring it in practice, how to get rid of this passion and ignorance. Because this passion and ignorance is the illusory energy that pushes us to develop these material desires. That so yes, therefore it is said here, one must cut to this karma by remembering the Supreme Lord, but it says with sword in the hand, with sword in hand. That sword is further explained in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam. What is that sword mentioned here? That this is 7:15:45. It's a long verse, but I will speak about the Sanskrit words in this verse. Jnanasim achyuta balo. That Jnana Asim, the sword or weapon of knowledge, is described here. And that is, and you can use that with Asyuta Bala, by transcendental strength. I will read a verse because it clarifies. Yavanikaya Raptanatmi Vasupakalpam Dattagriyasta Charana Charanya Nishatam Yana Simachutta Balu Dadadasti Satru Svananda Tushta Upashanti Idam Vijayat. As long as one has to accept the material body with its different parts and paraphernalia which are not fully under one's control, one must have the lotus feet of his superiors, namely his spiritual master and the spiritual master's predecessors. By their mercy, one can sharpen the sword of knowledge, and with the power of the Supreme Personality of God's mercy, one must conquer the enemies mentioned above. In this way, the devotee should be able to merge into the transcendental bliss, and then he may give up his body and assume his spiritual identity. It summarizes the whole process. So what's mentioned here is that you get this sort of knowledge, the scriptures, the knowledge. But that sword you must sharpen. And you sharpen this sword by following the instructions of the spiritual master. And then by the spiritual master, by following these instructions, you get achyuta bala. You get spiritual strength to use that sword. And then you use that sword. And what's the effect of using that sword? That all our enemies in the mind are destroyed. It means we are going to improve our character. That is what it means. Improving our character means giving up all these material desires and bad qualities arising from ignorance and passion. And these enemies are, which were mentioned in the previous verse here, that is hostility, greed, lamentation, illusion, fear, madness, false prestige, insults, fault-finding, deception, envy, intolerance, passion, bewilderment, hunger and sleep. All these are enemies. These are enemies coming from the mode of passion and ignorance. So by hearing the Bhagavatam, and by following the instructions of the spiritual master, by that combination, these enemies are removed from our heart. And that is what that process is further described in the next verses. From the next verse till verse 22, the whole process is described of Krishna consciousness. In verse 16 it will say you have to hear about Krishna with care and attention, and follow the instructions of the spiritual master. And then this knot will be cut gradually, and the more the knot is cut, the more we become attracted to Krishna. We get attraction to Krishna. And then Krishna says, Shimvatas Vakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Rityanta Toya Bhadrani Vidunot Sritsutam. I'm sitting in everyone's heart. And when I see that someone is attracted to me, someone becomes honest, I want to rectify myself, and I take shelter of Krishna and follow the instructions of the spiritual master, then that sword is sharpened and the knot is gradually cut, and you become attracted to Krishna. And when Krishna sees that, it starts to purify your heart and remove these enemies gradually. And that is then described in verse 19, Tadora jastam avaikamala bhasersate siteratera navitam stitvisatva prashidati. That then surely this influence of the mode of passion, this desiring, this lust, this hankering, and the mode of ignorance, it disappears, you become peaceful, and surely your love for Krishna starts to develop again, start to be uncovered, because it's there in our heart, naturally. It has to come out again. And then, gradually, we become happy in Krishna consciousness, we become naturally more detached, which is a result of devotional service. But to practice that properly, we have to dovetail everything with Krishna consciousness. That dovetailing, that's the word that Srila Prabhupada uses here in the purport. Dovetailing is a term that comes from the carpentry. Carpentry means those who are using wood to construct things. Like you have two pieces of wood, one piece something is coming out and the other has holes, and it fits perfectly in one in another. That's dovetailing. So Krishna speaks about that also in Bhagavad Gita. Yeah? Yat kausi yat tasnasi yat yosi dadasi yat tapasyasi kantya tat krosvamat arpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you give away, whatever charity, whatever austerity you do it as an offering for me. Shakhnarta karmano yatra lokayam karma bandhana. That you should do everything as an offering for me. So whatever we do in our lives, we have to learn to do as an offering for Krishna. You are going to work, you work for Krishna. You don't have to tell your boss that, but whatever we do, we have to connect with Krishna consciousness. And that is what Srila Prabhupada also in a purport in Bhagavad Gita says. We should organize our lives in such a way that during 24 hours a day we can not doing anything else than thinking of Krishna. And that's the training we have to undergo. And this training means we are following Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. That's the training that helps us always to think of Krishna. Have a strict morning program, chant your rounds, hear the Bhagavatam, worship the deities, associate with devotees, take prasadam, that do service for Krishna. That is our process. Thank you very much. Any questions, please? Yes, please.
Thank you for inspiring lecture. I just wanted to ask, when you mentioned that we sharpen the sword by following the orders of spiritual master. So I just wanted to ask, what enables us to really follow spiritual master sincerely? How to develop this determination and sincerity?
Yeah, thank you. to follow the instructions of the spiritual master sincerely. The essence is mentioned in 434 of Bhagavad Gita. Tat vinipanipatina paripreshna sevya upadang. Tat vinipanipatina paripreshna sevya. So one should approach a bona fide spiritual master and serve him. Tat vinipanipatina paripreshna sevya upadekshanti tehyam jhanas tattva dakshina. Serve the spiritual master with humility and ask questions about spiritual life. So we should be inquisitive and humble. Humble means, like we explained in a verse today, yes, I'm a nonsense. I'm here in this material world. I'm in difficulty. And recognizing that. And the spiritual master is a person who is liberated. He can help me to advance in spiritual life. So then you are hearing from the spiritual master, the beginning of sincerity, hearing with attention. Even if you don't understand everything, just try to hear. And then you have to think, how can I derive skills for that, to developing my the skills that helps me to reform my character, so that I can develop spiritual vision and spiritual understanding. And by that, naturally, in that process, you will have questions. If you don't have questions, that's many times a problem of that we are lazy in spiritual terms. We may be very active materially, but lazy on the spiritual platform. We must want to know who is Krishna, what's the spiritual world, how I'm going to get there, why am I suffering, where do I come from, where do I go? These are essential questions of life. What's the goal of life? Why am I living? Just for this body, for the senses, and then it's finished. So that is sincerity. Sincerity means learning to be a disciple, and it's not easy. And then it's not easy to be a sincere disciple, but we have to go to the struggle trying to become that and associate with those who are sincere. I hope that helps you. Okay, thank you very much. Something else? Good. Thank you very much. Shantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.